Welcome back to Light the Fuse, the only Mission Impossible podcast to be running full throttle while one of its co-hosts has had a baby. And I think that's pretty Ethan Hunt of us, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you want to talk about your child at all, Charles? Or
No, but I am excited. She's not quite big enough yet to wear the onesie that we have, because we should plug our t-shirts and things. And I've got the Ethan and Luther and Benji and Ilsa shirt, and I bought that in a onesie. I'm very excited to put her in that, but she's not quite big enough yet. She's a little peanut right now.
right, but she'll grow into it.
Yeah,
She's got very tall parents, so I'm sure it'll be a matter of days. And today we are talking to a really amazing key creative member of the Mission Impossible team, which is the makeup effects artist for Mission Impossible 3, Barney Burman. And we loved talking to him, didn't we?
Yeah, he's great. I feel like I don't know why people don't talk about him as much. He's done some amazing work.
Yeah.
He's not really as much of a household name as some of the other makeup guys, and I feel like he should be, especially with the family legacy that he has.
Yeah, we get into all this, and is it in this episode that we talk about that?
We do, yeah. I mean, over this week and next week, you're going to hear all about his career and really some amazing stories.
Yeah, it's incredible what he did for Mission Impossible 3. We get a lot of great behind-the-scenes nuggets in terms of like what was real, what was faked, practical gags that we were convinced were not.
Yeah.
It's just a really fascinating interview. Do you have anything else to add about this, Charles?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few little things we got to cover before we start the interview. Again, check out our merchandise on our website, LightTheFuse-TheOfficialMission.com. It's in the merchandise section. You can see our nice first t-shirt design. We're going to have more designs on the way very soon, working on that. And also our Patreon has started, so check out that. If you join the Mission Commander status level of patron, then you can get our bonus content, which is a little extended bit of interview with Robert Elswit, where he talks about Sidney Lumet. He talks a little bit about USC Film School and an old movie of his called Desert Hearts that he remastered. They worked on for Criterion, the Criterion release, and it's actually on the Criterion channel now. I just actually watched it a couple days ago. It's a fantastic movie. Have you ever seen that movie, Desert Hearts?
I haven't, no, but just give me your login and I'll make it happen.
Why don't you sign up for Criterion Channel? You need to support Criterion Channel. Come on.
I support Criterion Channel. I have so many Criterions on my shelf that
I know.
I feel like it would cut down. It would keep my excitement from the sale.
I just got the Police Story 1 and 2.
I just got it in the mail today. How'd you get it early, Charles?
You got Police Story 1 and 2?
Yeah. How did you get it early? That's my question.
It came in the mail. They know that I'm a huge Jackie Chan fan. They wanted to make sure it came as soon as it could get here. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, it's great.
Also, don't forget we have our iTunes reviews contest in full swing now. So we are battling it out with these other podcasts. Just Shoot It, Respect the Process, and Making Movies is Hard. Those are all great podcasts, but we want them to go down. So please write some iTunes reviews for us, because I'm sure we're losing and we want to gain on them. We don't know, because we're recording this so far ahead that the contest actually hasn't even started yet.
Why do you automatically think that we're behind, in the polls?
They've been around longer. We're younger.
That's true. But we got a lot of spunk and spirit.
Also, just wanted to say that in this interview, we talk about some makeup people, and I don't think we really say who they are, but a few of them, William Tuttle was a big name back in the day. He did a lot of the really famous Twilight Zone episodes. He did Forbidden Planet. He did Young Frankenstein. And we also talk about John Chambers, who did the original Planet of the Apes movie, and he did the original Star Trek TV series. And he did the pilot of Mission Impossible, and he's depicted by John Goodman in the movie Argo, since he was a part of that real-life incident.
I can't believe it took us this long to mention Argo. And we'll be back after the interview as well to wrap things up.
Yes,
right.
And one quick warning: there's also Barney brought his dog over to Drew's place. So Drew's dog and Barney's dog were having a bit of a showdown under the table while we were talking to Barney. So if you hear little critters, scooting about throughout the interview, that's just Nova, which is Drew's dog, named after the Planet of the Apes character.
Yes.
And Barney's, he had a doodle, right? A Labradoodle?
Yeah, that dog was so cute.
Yeah, it's adorable.
Huge.
So if you hear some dogs fighting in the background, that's what that is. No big deal. Don't worry.
Playfully. No one was hurt. But yeah, we'll be back after the episode to wrap things up.
We're here.
We're here with Barney Burman.
Yeah.
So so happy to have you here on the show. So excited.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I know your excitement is making us more excited. So just bouncing back and forth. But Barney, do you want to tell people what you sort of contributed to the Mission Impossible world?
What I contributed?
Yes.
I did the makeup effects for Mission Impossible 3.
Right.
The greatest of all the Mission Impossible films. Actually, I'm still a purist, and the first one is still my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Us
also,
too. Us too.
It's De Palma. I mean, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Did you ever work with De Palma?
My father worked with him a few times.
Really? On what? Did he do the exploding John Cassavetes head?
In what?
In The Fury.
Oh no, The Fury he did not do.
Okay.
He made the helmet and the prosthetic face wound for on Winslow Leach for Phantom of the Paradise.
Oh
wow.
My God, that is iconic.
Yeah.
That mask is so good. I love that movie.
Did the prosthetic makeup in Body Double.
Wow.
Did the dummy that gets shot through the mouth? Sean Connery shoots through the mouth in Untouchables.
Wow.
So during Body Double, I got to go on set as 19 or 20 or something young, but I got to go on set and help keep the Indian makeup. I guess now it's only Native American makeup, but they refer to it in the movie as an Indian makeup. So I got to sort of take care of it one day while my dad went off and did whatever. He left.
And
right.
was Greg Henry really in that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I don't know if he would have been like, I'm out of here, you know. Let somebody else wear the makeup. Yeah.
So this is like a family business then, right?
It is, yeah.
So your parents were nominated for an Oscar for Scrooged?
That's correct.
The
My
Richard Donner,
dad
Bill
and his
Murray
wife.
movie?
Yeah. And my dad's dad made like the cane that killed the Wolfman and the prosthetics that Jack Pierce put on the original Wolfman.
The original 1941 Wolfman with Lon Chaney.
Yes, he made pieces for Frankenstein. For I think it was House of Frankenstein. The masks in Twilight Zone were the.
I wanted to ask.
Clyde Strikes Midnight, I think it's called.
Oh my God, that's one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah.
The masks, right?
Yeah.
That's like the only episode of Twilight Zone that was directed by a woman. Actually.
Is that right? I didn't
realize.
realize
Fun
that.
little trivia.
But
that's one of my favorite episodes. Oh my God, those masks are amazing. So did he work with William Tuttle then?
My father was sort of a contemporary of William Tuttle, a little bit. William Tuttle ended up doing The Fury, and my dad didn't.
Right.
I think we had Rick Baker doing stuff for him in The Fury as well. I don't remember. I have to watch Fury again, but I do remember they had the Science Fiction Awards, which are now called the Saturn Awards. And they told my dad he was going to win for, I think it was Body Snatchers or Demon Seed, and he should come to the awards show because he's going to win. And he gets there, and it turns out The Fury has actually the winner. They were just telling people, so you're going to win, so they'd show up.
Those sons of bitches at the Saturn Awards.
What do you know? Were there any other Twilight Zone episodes that he worked on? Your grandfather?
Not that I recall offhand. I know he made like fake animals and stuff for the Jungle Book movie with Sabu.
Wow.
And some cool old stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, he used to make a lot of guns and swords and fake fish and different things. My brother and I would take these swords, which were viable, proper, usable swords, and we'd go and fight out in the front yard with them.
Someone could get hurt.
Little kids with quote unquote prop swords that were actually you literally stab like someone through if you wanted to.
Wow.
We were just going crazy on each other with them.
Was there ever was it sort of just sort of like a predestined thing that you would be a makeup artist, or were you like, I'd like to look into accounting or whatever,
I had dreams of being an accountant. I resisted the hell out of it. I had no interest really in being a makeup artist. Although I did like kind of sculpting little faces on my G.I. Joes and changing them around, and the little Hugo doll, a Man of a Thousand Faces. So I used to do stuff in school, theater and plays. I used to do people's makeup, but I didn't actually have the goal to be a makeup artist. I wanted to be a stuntman. I wanted to be an actor. And I needed a job when my mom kicked me out. Which is sounds worse than it is. It was like I was 18 and my mom I was living with my mother and she's like, I think it's time you leave. I said, yeah, you're right. So we were not getting along when I was kind of a shit when I was 18. So I started working at my dad's shop and at a sandwich shop at night in order to pay rent.
So what were the first things that you worked on with him?
The very first thing I was 14 was a movie called One Dark Night, Meg Tilly's first movie. And then cut 2 years later, I was about 17, 18, working on like Buckaroo Banzai and
That's awesome.
the Star Trek 3 and stuff like that. And then Goonies.
Oh, wow. The sloth character?
And the big octopus that got cut out.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
The mythical octopus scene that finally made it on a DVD.
That's right.
That's so cool. So you basically just grew up on sets, I assume.
I did. I feel very much at home on sets. I like it.
Yeah.
But never a Mission Impossible set.
Not until Mission Impossible 3.
Okay. Yeah. So how did you get involved with that project?
That was, I have to give thanks to Michelle Burke for bringing me onto that. She was doing the supervising the makeup overall. And she and I had met a few times before, but we had done this project for makeup artists. It was the Makeup Union Awards.
Okay.
And I did a likeness of Jack Pierce, who was the man who created Frankenstein and the Wolfman and the Mummy. And then other people did other makeups. Michelle came in and did the Bride of Frankenstein, I believe. And she really liked the work I did for the Jack Pierce likeness. So Mission Impossible came up and she asked me if I would be interested in taking on the prosthetic work and the mask work for it.
Wow.
That's awesome. And this is like, I feel like this doesn't get talked about enough, but there's like this is like a long line of like John Chambers did the pilot for the show, and then Rob Bottin.
John Chambers was my father's mentor.
Really?
Oh, wow.
So my father was, I don't know if he did Mission Impossible stuff per se, but he did a lot of stuff in the lab for John Chambers, making Spock's ears, doing Lost in Space and shows like that.
Yeah.
H.R. Puffin stuff.
So for people who don't know, John Chambers did the original Planet of the Apes movie.
Yeah, my dad was his sort of right-hand man on Planet of the Apes.
Really?
Yeah, he does a documentary out now about it called Making Apes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Is that and where's that available? That's just out
I think it's showing at festivals and stuff.
Oh, cool. But so like it's been a long line of these great makeup artists who've worked on this series, from going back to John Chambers on the original series, the pilot, and then Rob Bottin in the original movie, and then Kevin Yeager, the second movie, and then you. I mean, how did that feel?
That's pretty good company. It wasn't lost on me that Bottin and Yeager had done it, and then I was stepping up to do the third film, and I was like, oh shit, I got to do this.
Do you know that either of them?
Right.
Did you talk to either of them or anything before doing it?
No, I'd met them both previously, but we weren't wouldn't hang out and chat about anything. I didn't call them and say, what did you guys do for Mission Impossible? Right. I had a pretty good idea, what to do.
Yeah.
And I loved, a big part of it was JJ's creativity. He knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to be a makeup effects artist when he was a kid. And so he had a notion about the best way of handling it. He was just spot on.
Yeah.
What was his sort of philosophy?
He wanted to do as much in camera as possible, and he wanted to do camera tricks and see the beginning, like when Philip Seymour Hoffman begins to pull the mask off. He reaches into his collar and pulls it up as the camera pans away. When the camera pans back around, it's now Tom pulling the Philip mask off.
I wanted to talk to you about that shot. It's so good. It's under the Vatican.
Yeah.
I wanted to see if that's what it was.
Yeah.
The pan off, pan back, and they just swapped the two actors.
I think he's really good with the sort of the magic of filmmaking and how to best utilize that.
Yeah.
So it was very helpful having a director who knew clearly what he wanted to see. Made me understand exactly how to provide it.
So in that scenario, for that scene, it was you had to make a neck flap. Is that what it was? A neck flap for Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Correct.
And then it was just the Philip Seymour Hoffman mask for Tom Cruise.
Right.
And they just did a little do-si-do and switched when the camera panned off.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
How was Hoffman in the makeup chair getting all the goo put on him? We hear he was smoking a lot during this movie.
We interviewed somebody who worked in the camera department a couple weeks ago, and they were saying that he was a little grumpy, Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Not to disparage the dead.
Because we love him. He's amazing, obviously.
I think he's a very talented actor. He was a very talented actor.
Yeah.
I think that is a wisely put phrase. He was a little grouchy.
Okay. Yeah.
I wonder a little bit, considering the character he was playing, was that part of just who he was at that time because he was, I don't know, method acting or is that just him? I don't know. I don't know the man. All I know is the experience of that guy on that show.
Yeah, that's happened with me before working on a movie. The actor was doing method, and I didn't realize it until the middle of the shoot. Mm-hmm. So it's like, for the most part, this character is pleasant and good to be around. But I started to realize, on the days where this character is not happy, when this character is angry at the other characters in the show, or whatever, I'm having trouble we're dealing with this person. And and someone had made like an offhand joke, like, I think it was the agent was like, this person's really gonna bring it, like their method. And it was like, okay, I never heard, I just didn't. And then the dots connected in the middle of the shoot. I was like, that's why this person's so difficult on these days, because their method.
It's interesting. There are people who are super method, and I still think they suck. And then and then there are people who do it right. You get your De Niro's and you're like, and then you get the other people that are like have a very kind of a classically trained, like English actors who also, some of them, they just snap into it when they say action and snap out when they say cut. And some of them are great and some of them are not.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. Like, is it the technique, or is it just that some people have that ability to speak in earnest when they say action? Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about a scene that was deleted from the movie. When Kerry Russell's brain thing goes off, there was a shot of blood in Tom's direction. Do you remember this? Were you responsible for this?
No, I wasn't.
Squib? Okay.
I wasn't there for that because there was no prosthetic work happening per se. But there was an effect that was deleted before we got a chance to actually do it. And it was Kerry Russell in the morgue. And I made this prosthetic forehead that looked like it had been cut around the hairline, and her skin was pushed down, so it was kind of sloughing over her eyes. Oh. And JG just wanted to see the edge of her skin and skull in the bottom of frame, shooting from above her as she's laying down.
Right.
And I was so disappointed we didn't get to do that, but it was decided, like on the day I was there to do the makeup, and they said, I think this is going to put us into an R category.
Oh, no. So you did the whole thing, you made it all.
Had it ready to go, ready to do the makeup, and they nixed it.
Did you get any pictures of it?
No.
Oh, no.
Never did a test, never did anything. But it was, I thought.
So they didn't even film it?
No.
Wow.
No, I had this prosthetic piece with punched eyebrows and her skin all kind of pushed down over her eyes, and just to create the illusion so they're in her brain.
Right.
Without being too graphic about it.
Well, if you've still got the prosthetic, Charles, I think this could be a great Halloween costume for you.
She's about Kerry Russell's size.
Yeah,
sure.
I think so.
Yeah, I can do it.
You also did one of our favorite things in the whole series, which is the kind of like half mask when he's sort of incognito in the airport as kind of a hippie. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Michelle Burke, I get it.
Michelle
was
Burke.
credited with that.
Okay.
That was her baby. She really pulled it off on that.
But you obviously
she's very good at a very good makeup artist overall, but she's very good at just the kind of subtler disguise work.
Right. Yeah.
That's cool. But so what about on the Sid Mead like mask maker machine?
Yeah.
Like Philip Seymour Hoffman mask on there. Is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I made all that. It's finished. If you watch the behind the scenes thing, it looks like it's all visual effects guys came in and did this. But we didn't make the box, but I made the sort of blob mask that goes on there.
Oh, cool.
And then we did a half mask to look like it's chiseled halfway up. And then we did a Philip mask that was painted halfway. So we did all these stages.
So you could see the little arms go through it.
Yeah. And then the final one, and when he sticks on the wig and the eyebrows, and that was a cool one too because they cut it there on the day. They shot it in camera, and camera pans behind Ving, and it comes back the other side of him, and they had swapped out by that point Tom with Philip. And I don't even think they needed to do all the CG subtle pushing the mask in and blending it off. It sold it. The way he put the mask on, they go behind him, they come around, and there's Philip sitting there, and they're just like touching him. I thought, wow. I mean, just there on the day, it looked fantastic.
Yeah. Right. I assume they disguised a cut when they went behind Ving Rhames' back. Was it actually?
Nope.
They didn't?
That was all one smooth take.
So while they did it again, a do-si-do, they switched out the actors.
Well, they did it a couple of times. They did it with Tom, and then they did it with Philip.
Right.
And so they could, when they come back and they get to Tom as Philip, they could blend those two together.
Okay.
And they did it very seamlessly.
Yeah.
Well, what was your relationship with ILM like on this movie? Sometimes you hear makeup effects people who are very sort of anti-CGI, and then other times...
No, they're very cooperative.
Yeah.
And I figure this way, we're all there to serve the project. I wasn't trying to hold this up as like a showcase for me. And I don't think they were trying to showcase them. They were just saying, what's the effect that needs to be made here, and how can we all make it happen?
Right. But obviously this project was probably very important for you personally because you worked with Tom again on Tropic Thunder. Yeah. And you came back for JJ for his two Star Trek movies, right?
Well, I did this, and then JJ called me for a HBO show, a pilot he was trying to make into a series called Anatomy of Hope.
Okay.
So I did some prosthetic work for that, and it's while that was happening, he was starting up Star Trek, and I said, hey, I'd really like to do that, and he said, yeah, come on, we'll have fun. And so that's how that kind of evolved. The second Star Trek movie, David Anderson supervised the makeup, and I came in just for the Keenser character. I was kind of swamped with doing a TV show called Grimm that left me no time.
Right. Yeah, that was on for a long time. Is it still on?
No, it stopped in 2017.
Well, everyone who listens to this podcast loves stories about Tom Cruise. So you've obviously spent a lot of time with him in the makeup chair, both on this and Tropic Thunder. What are your sort of favorite Tom Cruise stories?
Two stories spring to mind that I think are telling of him and his character. And the one that is most, I think, demonstrative of just how cool he is this. I had to do a chest plate so that Michelle Monaghan could give him CPR full force, not faking it, bending her elbows. He really wanted her to give him CPR, but he didn't want his ribs broken, which is weird. But that is his method, or whatever. So I made this chest plate for him that was a sculpted silicone fiberglass backed chest plate with these foam pads in there, so it distributed the weight equally throughout his torso. And he was really impressed with it, fortunately. But when we did the cast him, I had to get a chest cast of him. And I took everything to Paramount, and we set up a space, and he laid down, and I was doing a silicone cast. Well, this silicone, it needed a certain kind of release agent to be able to peel it off. It comes off skin easily, but hair it tended to grab onto. And Tom's not a very hairy guy, but he's hairy enough. Mm-hmm. And I did not have the right release agent. And I thought, just put a little more Vaseline on, and it just this silicone just grabbed onto his hair like crazy. And without going into too much detail, it was really difficult to get off. And his Michelle Burke was there looking at me like big eyes and like, what did you do? And I'm thinking, my career is just dead right now. I'm over. We had to literally like use a straight razor and like cut the hairs as we went. And
oh my gosh,
there's little nicks are happening, and he's bleeding, and I'm just like, oh my god, I'm so devastated. I kept saying, I'm so sorry, and he just kept looking at me, going, it's okay, it's all right, don't worry about it. And
wow.
If ever I had like a celebrity had the right to fire me,
to yell, yeah,
or at least chew me out, that was a moment, and he was magnanimous and cool. So what I'll tell you, it made me want to give my very best.
So. We hear that again and again from people, that you have to elevate yourself to be on his level.
Yeah. Well, I think he sort of demands and absolutely deserves the people around him to be on their A game. Mm-hmm. And if you can't be there and be on your A game, you might suffer.
Yeah.
If nothing else, just the speed of which things are happening.
Yeah.
You got to be up to the moment.
All right. What's the second?
The other one, just as we're doing his hand cast for Tropic Thunder, and we were at his house, and we had the box, and we're going to pour alginate, and my brother was there helping me, and we're mixing up this big bowl of alginate. So I poured it onto his arms, and I realized, I want to wear gloves for this. And so I went over and I said, gloves, I got to get some gloves. And I started putting them on. I said, I don't want to get this shit on my skin. It's just beat, like, huh? And he looked up at me, and I just gave a little knowing smile, and then he smiled back, and I thought, all right, cool. He's catching on that I'm just kidding him a little bit. And anyway, it felt nice that there's an ease, and you can look. I'm not going to go out of my way to be a comedian for him or entertain him. It's not my job. But in that moment, the joke was there. I took it, and he appreciated it, and
that's great.
I like that.
And who appreciates those hairy hands?
Yes, I wanted to ask specifically about the hands in Tropic Thunder, because if you watch Tropic Thunder, the Barney did the work for turning Tom Cruise into, was it Les Grossman? Is that his name?
Les Grossman.
And he's this sweaty, fat-fingered studio executive, and his hands are so distinct. And it's just amazing watching him scream into the cell phone and stuff, and you see his big fat fingers, and I just wanted to ask you about those.
Well, that character was born out of Tom wanting big, meaty hands. And I felt pretty good because I guess they had approached Rick Baker about it, and he just didn't think you could do it well.
Oh, wow.
And
take that, Rick Baker.
Well,
that's okay. We say it on every show. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was he listening? He's not. He lives around here.
He does. I've seen him.
So what I did this cast of Tom's hands, and then instead of sculpting hands on top of it, I used Tom's own hands as the sculpt. But in order to make them gloves, you have to sort of lay a lining of clay into the negative mold, and then pour something in to fill up the gap, and then you have a positive core and a negative mold of his hands. So I made the skin and the glove the thicknesses I wanted to create the fat and the meatiness of it. So basically what we ended up doing was just putting Tom's real hands inside a glove of Tom's hands with varying thicknesses to create the meaty and the fatness.
Right.
And I felt pretty good about it.
Did you hand?
We hand punched every hair. Every hair was hand punched.
Wow.
And we had three sets of gloves. And production said, "Can we just do 2 sets?" And I'm like, "We can, absolutely, but we don't have a lot of tests to see how these are going to hold up throughout the day. And if the one rips, and then we got to put the second one on him, and then we have to rely on that not ripping while we're patching the first set. And if you want to tell Tom Cruise we just didn't think a third set was necessary, that's totally up to you." They're like, "Okay, make a third set."
Well, when they were talking about doing a movie for a long time, like a spin-off movie. Did they talk to you about it?
There was a brief conversation. I don't know. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But, another thing is that we were talking about the details of that character. I don't know if this is flattering or not, but the character is sort of based on a couple of different kind of overly gruff producers, but the details of his character were kind of developed in shop based on me. Because I have hairy arms, and we were looking at the patterns of the hair on my arms. We're looking at the patterns of my bald head and the way the hair grows, and the certain kind of heft was about the same. And we're just kept using me as like the example. And I felt actually one of the proudest moments. I was years later in a strip club on Halloween with a friend of mine, and a guy came in as Les Grossman. I was like, all right, that's pretty good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you talked about the chest piece. Are there any sort of like hidden makeups that people might not know about in Mission Impossible 3?
There's one that I think people don't understand was a makeup, and certainly don't understand how quickly it was done. Michelle Monaghan is in the chair, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's threatening her, and I think he finally shoots her in the head, and then Billy Crudup comes in and rips a piece of her face off.
Yes.
And I'm so proud of that because we had one chance to do this. I had a face of Michelle on her own face that was pre-cut. And then I took a putty and I filled in the gap where the cut was. And they were under the gun. They wanted to move on. They didn't want to do this shot. I told JJ, I said, just give me one chance. Give me one chance to do this. He said, all right, let's do it. And I had a different tone. I had the other actress's skin tone underneath that prosthetic. So when they ripped it off, it was the other actress's skin tone, and then the CG guys, of course, came in and put the other actress's face underneath it. But that was a really quick shot, a quickly done shot, and the success of it, I feel really proud of. We also made a dummy of Michelle overnight, so that a dummy could sit in that chair for like wide shots and after the fact when she was dead and laying there. So we didn't have to have Michelle Monaghan just sitting in the chair doing nothing. And they said, can you make a dummy who plays tomorrow? And this is like, 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was like, scrambling. So we took her life cast, we took that face mask, we got a wig, we had a dummy, a mold of a woman that wasn't really quite her size, but we fabricated it and extended a little bit and put that thing together in about 12 hours.
And is that featured in some of the wide shots?
I'd have to go back and look at it to be sure, but I think it's there. It's just when she's just kind of slumped in the chair doing nothing.
Okay. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, were there any gags or things that you'd come up with besides the skull that you wish was still in the movie, or were there any mask dreams that you had that you didn't get to realize in this one?
I wouldn't say that I didn't get to realize. I think the aside from the autopsy skull, everything else was pretty well scripted.
Okay.
And like I said, JJ was very clear, and that was very helpful. I think I'm not even quite sure how much of the Philip Seymour Hoffman mask is used in the bathroom scene. And then, like when he goes and he climbs up through the loft and through the rafters, but I think that's all just mask, or a good portion of it is mask. I think people just assume that it's Philip doing both roles and then splicing them together. But I really think it came off very well. I'm very proud of how much we were able to fool in camera by using the masks that we made.
Did you have a body mold of Philip Seymour Hoffman that then Tom Cruise put on?
No. Wardrobe came up and they did a great job with the padding and all that. And sometimes it was a stunt guy wearing it
instead of Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
we're always interested to know when Tom Cruise is not.
I think when he kind of he's as Philip as the character Philip played, he kind of jumps up through these rafters and goes up. He was wearing as a stunt guy in a mask, and I think
in the commentary they were saying that it was Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Is that right?
Yeah, JJ and Tom Cruise were saying that it was Philip Seymour Hoffman, that he was a gymnast in high school and he was using his physicality.
That sounds
spoiler alert.
Considering we had someone else tell us that he couldn't get through a single punch in the fight scene at the end.
Oh, right. He was out of breath.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was part 1 of Barney's episode. I love it. I love him. I hope you and him work together on a movie. That's my dream.
That would be awesome. He's so cool, really laid back, and so talented. I mean, it's an amazing dude. Such a great career he's had. It's insane. Also, I wanted to say that as a correction, I think I said in the interview that Philip Seymour Hoffman was a gymnast, but he wasn't a gymnast. They said in the commentary that he was a wrestler, so I misspoke there.
Okay, well, thank you for clearing that up. As always, we want to encourage everyone to like, subscribe, rate, and review wherever they listen to Light the Fuse. Those reviews don't only give us a heads up on this stupid contest, but really help us in a lot of ways in terms of getting recognition. Also, if you haven't watched Patrick Willems' new Mission Impossible video, it's great, and it features our shirt that you can get right now on our on the merchandise section of our website, LightTheFuse-TheOfficialMission.com.
Yeah, and check out our interview with Patrick that we did months ago. It's a really great one of our earlier episodes. I think it's in the teens. That we did a two-part episode with Patrick that's really great, where he talks about an earlier video essay. We'll have Patrick on again as well. Yeah, at some point. We love him, of course.
And we've got a big name, at least for us, coming up in a few weeks that we want to just tease out there. How are we going to tease this, Charles?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, we could say he's another Oscar winner.
He's another Oscar winner. He's worked on Star Wars?
I was going to say the Force is strong with him, but sure, we could just say he worked on Star Wars. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of Star Wars Mission Impossible overlap, so that does give us a little bit of a little.
There
leeway.
is.
So
I feel like we've already hinted too much. People are going to be able to figure this out. But he was such a great interview. It was so amazing to go talk with him.
Yes, we were very lucky, and he was hilarious and very forthcoming, and told us both stories that we had never heard before. So
yeah,
which is saying something. I mean, at this point, like getting new stories is a big deal still for us. So yeah.
Yeah. Also, thank you to Jacob from Holland. And this episode is brought to you by Jeremy Dillon, and it was mixed by Luke Burson. So thank you to you guys for helping us out. And give us some iTunes reviews, please, please, please. We need to catch up in this race. I'm certain that we're losing, so you got to just get us all the reviews.
And we'll be back next week with part 2 of Barney. So come back for that.
Bye. Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at LightTheFusePodcasts@gmail.com. If you'd like to watch the original Mission Impossible television show, all 7 seasons are currently available to stream on Amazon Prime. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.